Hey all, Game Methuselah here. Well, I want to do some kind of a video this weekend, but I've been really lazy and didn't want to do some big thing, and I don't know why, because it's not actually been a big weekend. But I've been painting, so I wanted to talk to you about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart and show you a little bit of it. And that is my D&D Zero. I have a fairly large Dungeons & Dragons original collection from the 70s. I have a lot of my own figures. I have a lot of figures I've accumulated over the years, and I've had figures that were given to me. In fact, I will show you most likely one of the prized possessions I have in my collection. This is a mid-late vintage purple worm, scaled to a human-sized figure of appropriate this size. And this figure is really cool. Now, the interesting thing about it is every segment of this figure is an individual piece. And this thing must weigh, if it doesn't weigh at least 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds, I'd be surprised. It's all metal. As you can see, it's pretty dense. It's got a pretty cool paint job on it. Holding these together was a real hard part. I've got a lot of figs, and I'll likely start trying to pull some out and show you some really cool vintage figures. I think this is heritage. I'm not sure. My memory's not that good on it. I'm betting that somebody else will remember it, will put up information on it. It's only been touched up a couple times over the years, but I've tried to keep it pretty consistent to the way it would have looked in the 70s. I can tell you I never actually used this in a game. The biggest reason is I don't think any party would have survived this. I mean, a purple worm of this magnitude would have been something pretty hard to stop. But there she is, and it's one of my favorites. It's about the level of quality I would paint. I'll pretend I'm actually was a little better, but Dana paints really well then, and he really paints quite well now. He's involved with HMGM PSW with me, and he does a lot of historicals and really, really good. And he's talking about doing a D&D Zero campaign, so I'm kind of thinking that a lot of the stuff that I got from him, I'm going to end up fixing up and letting him use for his campaign, because if he does that, I'd sure like to get some pictures of it and the like. This became a big passion of mine after Gary Gygax died. We started to do this, getting ready so I could teach people how to play D&D Zero. Really more of just to sort of see how the game started. Most people had never heard of it or seen it. For sure never have played it. And it's kind of amazing when they play it because they're kind of astounded about how little there is to it. This figure's really interesting. This is Guinevere. This was my girlfriend at the time's 7th level mage. Now, this isn't the figure that I had. This one is the same miniature, came out of either a green wooden ball or a garrison box. Likely Dana bought it exactly the same time I did, because I would break up the boxes and sell them individually. And he painted it pretty much the same way I did. The only difference is he painted it pink and blue. I painted it pink and red. I also put a little staff in her hand. So I might actually retouch this to try to duplicate Pam's old character, Guinevere, who, like I think if you saw the interview with Matt, or even I mentioned before, was at one point in time the highest level magic user in Southern California, and we did other things. Other miniatures that I had that I really liked, Dana had these. He had painted them also exactly the way I painted them, and I'm not really sure why. These are minifig gargoyles from like 75. Really fascinating. I think both of us were more likely very interested in having them as demons as well as gargoyles so they could do double duty. In this case, I'm actually going to end up completely repainting these, so they're going to be gray. I think I have 2 or 3 of my own, so I'm going to try to put them all together at the same time and give them a 70s paint job, but make them sort of the gray gargoyles that they were. Now, some of these figures may not look impressive, but these were state of the art. Another nice job by Dana here. This is more likely somewhere in the later 70s, 76 to 77 or 8. I'm guessing it's Hengecliff, not completely sure, but he did a nice job on it. So all I'll do is sort of remount these and clean them up. And this is kind of what I'm doing. Decreespieler trolls. He has 3 of them. I was so thrilled to find these. That's like a full set. One of them he redid the shield on, but these things will eventually get done. I think I have 2 more of my own, so I could have an whole cadre of trolls. Why you'd want to have them, I'm not so sure, but it would be fun. This was something I found in one of my old boxes, a custom cast 1975 Bowman figure. I will bet you in 75, every time I played a game, and as a DM, Anybody who had a Bowman was likely using this figure. It was without a doubt maybe the best figure available in 1975-76, and I think I saw it quite a bit. Something else I thought would be fun to look at is this is a 1976, well, that's listed as 76, Ral Partha when they first came out. And this is a female rogue. I really loved this rogue when it came out. I really love it now, kind of for some of the same reason. She's not naked. She's not in a bikini. She's not wearing any kind of, she's got a little cleavage, and that's really it. She's got her dagger. She's in a combat mode. She's got a cloak. This figure really looks like a combat figure, and the face is beautiful. Minifig at the time, Ral Partha at the time, we're really doing some beautiful, beautiful stuff, which I'll show you as we go down the road. I'm just going to have to touch her up a little bit. She doesn't need a whole lot of work, but gosh, this figure I loved. I cannot tell you how many female miniatures I got and then had to modify the figures so they didn't look like they were naked or near naked, or if they were Amazons, maybe I guess they were supposed to. But it was tough to find adventuring females that looked like they were really adventuring females. And, I guess that's the way it was back then. Maybe that was one of the artist renditions and stuff, but I don't think I'd want my wife or girlfriend fighting in a bikini. I think I'd prefer they actually wore some armor. But this is nice to have, and these are going to be some great figures. Now, this is great. I have a fairly large collection. These are the ones I'm going to work on, so I'll show you a little bit of how I do prepping up. Now, we used to magnetize everything back in the Dark Ages, and there was a place called Dooley's Hardware in Long Beach, which I think is now called Dooley's High School because I think they donated the land. And this was the wonderful self-adhesive half-inch magnetic strip. And what people would do is they would just get this, they'd cut a piece, and they would go, oh, that's cool, wouldn't be any real effort, and you just hack it up with your X-Acto knife. You get your figure, and you put it on there, and you go, wow, that's great. I don't have to use any glue. It's all ready to go. Except for one problem. After about 20 years, the self-adhesive becomes dead, and you could just essentially, the miniatures start falling off the piece. So never, 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 never use self-adhesive magnets. They aren't going to last, assuming you're going to have these miniatures for a while. So what I do is sort of something that was sort of done kind of back then, is I used to mount them on pennies. Now, I actually think this is a violation of the law, so please don't turn me into the Treasury Department because I don't want to get arrested for defacing coins. But I would get pennies, and I'm doing this in all the renovations, and these have to be from 1976 or before because, of course, when hundreds of years from now are past and archaeologists are looking at the figures trying to figure out what's going on, they can sort of kind of date when this was done. So I'm trying to be helpful. But you just grab the pennies. You glue them onto non-self-adhesive 1-inch magnets, and then you just take them and cut them out with the scissors. And then after I've done that, I take one of my Brookhurst Hobbies emery boards and just run around the edge here, clean it up a little bit so you can do it. Now, this is not a dead issue for me. I mean, I'm right now in the process of painting a figure for Craig Steele for his little campaign he's currently running. He gave me this little fox to paint for one of his upcoming campaigns, and I'm right in the process, but that's a penny with a magnet on it. Now, it's not an old penny. I used a more modern penny for that, but that's a concept I've still used. Now, mostly we weren't using it a lot at the time. I don't know why. People were just taking magnets and gluing them onto the bases like this. Again, as you can see, that self-adhesive magnet was really terrible, but we didn't know any better 20-some years ago. So I can tell you I have had to rebase hundreds, if not thousands of figures that have already gone through that problem. But once you get them magnetized, cleaned, you get the piece up, you start looking at it and seeing what you want to do. In this case, I'm only going to I want to keep them exactly as much as I can to the way the figure is. And I want to kind of paint them in the style of the 70s. So I'll likely just give this a white dry brush, maybe a very light blue ink wash. I won't use any of the earth shades because they're a little too modern, but the washes were available back then. They were usually inks, so you were actually buying them like from, pen places and stuff. Oops. Added more damage. But, over 40 years of use, this little air elemental here has seen a lot of action and wear, and now it needs a little cleanup. But this is what's going on. So I think we're going to start seeing a little bit more of these, and I'll try to keep them in bite sizes, but a lot of this is good for how you just restaurate or restore. I guess it's not restaurate, it's not really a word. How you restore miniatures that have been used for years and are damaged. It's going to be D&D 0 because it's a passion. and you'll be seeing more of it. So just an idea of what's going to be coming. I just wanted to show you some of this, kind of show you how to maybe prep up things, especially if you're redoing figures. But always when you're trying to redo figures, try to keep them consistent to the way they were, especially if you're doing things like this that are historical. Dana did a nice job on this, so I'm not going to really want to do a lot other than just a little bit of dry brush to cover up any scuffs. And then once I get it to that point and I'm happy with it, we'll be ready to go, and they'll be back on the battlefield. And I'll start showing you more and more of my finished collection as we go. Now, if you're really curious, I suppose you could go back and look at some of my old Twitters from a year ago. I actually did post up one or two of my boxes of my D&D Zero stuff. So keep an eye on what's going on. I just want to do something really quick because I'm in the process of painting and figured you guys might as well share that with me. So until we speak again, fight me devils fight, for I hate peace. Have a good rest of your weekend.